Nick actually covered in his talk, which again, like to stand up to the fact like these folks really do get it. They are engaged. I mean, he is here because he wanted to be here. And he really has that energy and passion about it. And he made the comment about when he had been talking with the air traffic controllers about those systems running Windows 95. I mean, my intro talk to industrial control systems is why is it running Windows XP? And my favorite joke that I like to ask the audience is always, what is an industrial control system? And inevitably, nerds being nerds give me all of these like technical answers, when the joke is it's any system that's at least 20 years old. But when you start to think about the right, what's the point of the joke or the story? We need to be better at storytelling in this industry. Our problem isn't the technical. Our problem is getting other folks to understand it. And unfortunately, it requires things like Colonial Pipeline, where bad things happen to an entire portion of the country, where folks go, oh, that's what ransomware is. Well, ransomware has now become a kitchen word. Your grandmother knows what ransomware is. Your grandmother doesn't know technically how ransomware works, but that's okay. We know that. And guess what? Leadership, whether you're in public or private, is like grandma. You need to be talking to them like grandma. We need to be telling stories to them like that are like grandma, to educate in a simple and easy way and not get into the nerd stuff, because they're not going to care and they're not going to follow it. And that's why we're here today. We're here today to have a critical impact. We're here to create critical effects, which is why we changed the name to that. And I'm really grateful to Josh for helping me do that, because I can't tell you, ladies and gentlemen, to have to come up with a whole brand new name after you've been doing one for 7 years is not an easy task. And so the intent, and with the different tracks, is that what comes out of this isn't going to just be for critical infrastructure. But again, the reason we have homework, the reason we need to build the relationships, the reason we have calls to action, the reason that we have the Shark Tank is because it isn't what we accomplish here, it's what we build here that we take out there to make that difference. For those of you who are looking for other ways to get involved, our nonprofit, the ICS Village, we're doing events year-round. We're affiliated with the Institute for Security and Technology. Reach out to us if you're interested in volunteering or working with us around the year, because again, it isn't what just happens here, and it isn't just what happens in Washington, D.C. that is required to make that difference. I've worked with hundreds of asset owners throughout the world. And Wendy Nather put this really well back in 2013 when she talked about the cyber poverty line, because I think that really, again, it's an easy visual, it's an easy story of the haves and the have-nots. And the problem we have is most folks, most organizations are in the have-not category. Paper only goes so far. Paper requires me to have the time to read it. Paper requires me to have the time to not only read it, to understand it, to synthesize it, to then try to put it in motion. Well, that's a lot of work when I'm the one IT person that works at my electric co-op. How am I supposed to do all of that? Conferences like this are a luxury. I don't even have the time. I can't afford to go there. Providing me free services also costs me something, because that takes time and attention for me to be able to effectively engage that. How many water systems do we have, JL, throughout this country? Depends on how you look at it, but the estimate is around 150,000, right? Water ISAC. That's 150,000 organizations that we are trying to reach. How do we do that? Well, it requires all of us getting out there and engaging and really thinking, again, it's the folks without the resources that need the most help. It's the folks who can't be here who need the most help. And it's those small communities that are isolated and are most vulnerable to these challenges. But they're not vulnerable alone, because all of this connects to each other. And one of the interesting talks and themes that's going to be coming out of this session, which ties into a lot of the work that Josh is doing with Undisruptible, is not only the urgency of what we need to do, but the dependencies on that. As it turns out, calling everything critical makes nothing critical. And there is a priority order to those dependencies that we need to understand, so we are applying our efforts as best as possible, because we don't have the time or the resources to get it wrong. And the final thing, because I know a lot of us, and I know a lot of you, we've been doing this for a long time, haven't we? And you're here and it's Thursday morning and you've had some coffee, so you're feeling briefly energized. But you do that within the backdrop of the existential angst and depression of what have we accomplished? And some of you are frustrated. Some of you are on the border of giving up because what have we done? Well, we have done things. We have accomplished things. It's not that there's no progress. But again, going back to the joke about industrial control systems and where Nick referenced Windows 95, it's going to be very slow. These systems themselves were built to last for decades, which means our impact on them is going to take decades as well, although in some of those circumstances, we can't wait that long.
Hi. I was really happy that Bryson asked to join forces on this. I've been coming to Hacked Capital for many years. I've really appreciated it. I've enjoyed it. Every year, I lovingly and constructively say, where's the urgency? Some of these things take 10 years, right? We started IamTheCavalry.org 13 years ago, and it took 9 years to pass minimum regulations for medical devices. It took 4 years to get an IoT law passed. We told everyone to be patiently impatient, and that's my normal disposition. But with this Undisruptable 27 project, what we're basically saying is, and I'm going to do a rapid fire compressed version of this. If you ask your neighbors, not your grandmother, your neighbors, right? If you ask your neighbors, they don't talk about breaches or IOCs or TTPs. They just say, my payroll was disrupted. My flights were disrupted. My patient care was disrupted. My ability to get my pharmaceutical needs met were disrupted. So they're seeing more disruptions, larger disruptions, longer disruptions, more life safety disruptions from accidents and financial adversaries. But what Bryson knows, what I know, what most of you in this room knows, is what happens when we add that unsustainable trajectory. We add weapons of war. And on January 31st last year, the 4 horsemen of the cyber apparatus of the US government, in an unclassified briefing, told everyone about Volt Typhoon. And we have so many different code names for so many different adversaries. What I said is, can we take the body of work and the venue that you've created, and can we add something to say, what can be done to buy down risk in 12 to 18 months? So if you look at the calendar, we've got about 18 months before it's 2027. It's not like at the strike of midnight, we're going to have a hybrid warfare. But China has intentions towards Taiwan. They've said they would like the US to stay out of it. We're not going to stay out of it. Part of that overall campaign is they have already routinely compromised lifeline critical infrastructure. So we asked a lot of the speakers to bring their A game. Let's talk about the basic human needs, the water you drink, the food you put on your table, the power for our communities and our industry and our economy, timely access to patient care, where delayed or degraded care affects mortality rates, worsened outcomes, losses of life. So to that, it's heavy. And to Bryson's point, we also know that everyone's feeling pretty tired. So we're asking a lot of you, but part of the idea here at Critical Effect is we want to get to critical mass in this major room. We want to have strategic effect in the boardroom. And we want to have tactical mastery from the technical community here. But instead of us normally asking, what can we do over the next 5 to 10 years? We want to know what can be done across America, not depending on the federal government or the Beltway, but how do we meet people where they are, this target-rich cyber poor, the people living below the security poverty line, so that we can make sure that the worst punch thrown at our water systems can be taken. So this is not about adding cyber per se. We're going to talk about that throughout the day. It may be about engineering down the consequences of those attacks. No water means no hospitals in about 4 to 6 hours. So while there are 151,000 water facilities, Kevin will remind us about 50,000, a third of them service communities and humans. 6,000 of those support our nation's hospitals. If you want and need and deserve timely access to care, what we're asking through the Undisruptable Project is, what are the interdependencies between power, water, and access to emergency care in the next 12 to 18 months? And we're asking you to be comfortable with your discomfort. We have at least 5 talks touching on water, some on power, some on food, some on healthcare. And we're asking a lot. But we want your creativity because we don't want to just admire the problem. We don't want to talk about the problem. We don't want to just push paper. We want to find ways that you can make this personal for your own community. So to that, I may try to play the video. It may not work. We're going to try. All right, this is a water hammer before you hit play. This is not the only attack, and we will talk about this on the water panel. But as we used empathy, met people where they are, talked to power and water engineers and hospitals, they had never heard of Volt Typhoon. There's too many typhoons to track. It's yesterday's news. But we said, if you were a water engineer, what's the worst you could do? And among the answers is, well, an overpressurization event could burst a water main. Pressurization event could hurt. A water hammer is a property of physics where a sudden change can lead to destructive or explosive damage. And while we could repair water mains, trying to do that in a hurry concurrently on the pressure zones of all the US hospitals is not a good thing. So we learned a lot about this by not telling them and pointing a finger, but meeting them where they are, asking what's the worst case that could happen and what can we do about it within the time, the budget, the skill that we have. And unintuitively, cyber people are holding a cyber hammer and everything looks like a cyber nail. And it turns out if you have 12 to 18 months and we're shifting more of the balance from the federal government to the states, to local response, we're probably not going to be able to add cyber. So we also have to have some humility and find out what's the art of the possible. And most of the creative solutions came from these water engineers and these owners and operators themselves. There's some debate on what to do. We should try a lot of things. But the idea here is let's assume we're going to get compromised because we have been. And let's make sure that the worst punch thrown isn't that bad or that you can take that punch. So you're going to hear throughout the next couple of days quite a few water talks. I was going to enumerate most of them. I'm not going to right now. But let's try to play the quick video.
We are too dependent on undependable technology. The systems that we rely on every day for everything from water to food to power and emergency medical care are subject to escalating harms by accidents, bad actors, and nation-state adversaries. These attacks could quickly move from disruption to destruction. For example, an intentional water hammer that abruptly stops or reverses water flow, sending a shockwave through the system. Attacks on our water systems would be devastating, not just for lack of access at home. No water means no coffee, no toilets, no laundry. No water also means no hydrants to put out fires. No water means no healthcare. The hospital can't run without clean water. No water means no sterilization, no surgery scrubbing, no laboratories, and eventually no access to life-saving care. Our dependence on connected tech has grown faster than our ability to secure it, and there is evidence that foreign actors are already weaponizing these vulnerabilities. But who would actually do this? In public hearings, Congress and U.S. government cybersecurity leaders have warned the public of Volt Typhoon, an ongoing campaign of successful attacks on U.S. water facilities, led by a People's Republic of China state-sponsored cyber actor. But China is not the only aggressor. We've seen cyber attacks on our water systems from Russia and Iran. These attacks pose a broad and unrelenting risk to critical water infrastructure and could escalate to large-scale destructive attacks on our water systems as early as 2027. The good news is we have time to make changes. We must strive to make our lifeline basic human needs undisruptible, and where we cannot, ensure that our communities are more resilient under fire. This means divesting our reliance on connected technology, better securing our existing systems where we cannot disconnect, and ensuring analog solutions are in place when those systems fail. If this sounds overwhelming, remember, if you can't afford to protect it, you can't afford to connect it. Undisruptible 27 will prioritize the safety, security, and resilience of 3 lifeline basic human needs, especially at the local level.
So that's a little moving storyboard draft of how we're trying to meet people where they are, not use lots of jargon, but try to show that not only is water exposed to accidents and adversaries, not only have we seen hospitals ransomed and shut down and affect patient care, but it's the interdependence and interconnectedness here. No power means no pumps. No pumps means no pressure. No pressure means no hospitals, fire hydrants. And we might have ways to respond and recover, but these crisis management are much more like a natural disaster, like a hurricane, a wildfire, a tornado. And emergency response and disaster management is local. So we're going to have to flip the script. We have some people from state and local emergency response and crisis management, and we need to teach them what we know, but also learn what they know. Because if we're going to have a crisis in the next 12 to 18 months, if we have a little more time, if it's not Russia, if it's not China, it could be Russia, Iran, or anybody, because we are dependent on undependable IT. So please grab some water hammer stickers. Please try to attend as many water talks as possible. And it's not the only thing that's important, but it's really illustrative of things that we can do left of boom and right of boom to make ourselves available to the owners and operators, to municipal leadership, to make sure your family is resilient, and that you've found ways to, in the short term, assist to either reduce the likelihood of one of these things happening or certainly respond and recover quickly. I'm really honored to be part of the Craig Newmark family of philanthropic funded projects. Everyone should give a quick round of applause for Craig's funding of this pilot from June to July. Many of the philanthropic endeavors are in this room. One of them I'm also excited about, especially given the urgency of this moment, is the Cyber Resilience Corps, CORPS, being run with Ann Cleveland and the CLTC and a whole host of volunteer organizations so that we can have a one-stop shop where can I ask for help and how do I quickly find who's willing and able to help where I live within the jurisdictions and laws that we have. So there's a lot of growing momentum to say, let's not look for the public sector to do this. Let's not look for the private sector to do this. What are you willing and able to do? 13 years ago, I said to the hackers, the cavalry isn't coming. No one's going to save us. So I asked the hackers, what are you willing and able to do? I'm asking that again to you. This is a very different kettle of fish, right? We knew that our dependence was growing faster than our ability to secure it, but now we know we have a credible threat. They've told us where they're going to hit us, approximately when they're going to hit us. We know how they're going to hit us. The question is, are we ready to take a punch? So we think when you hear from Mark Montgomery and others, part of our ability to project strength and deterrence is to make sure that they know that if they hit us, we're going to take it. We're fine. So I both want resilience and protection for you and your families. I want this to be personal. I want you to go meet your local leadership, go to a town hall meeting, ask the right questions, offer your assistance. And over the next 2 days, you're going to hear how. So this was a pilot, and we agreed to partner with Bryson. I'm very happy we did, but it was a 1-year pilot, and that pilot is ending in July. So our path forward was uncertain. And today here, I'm happy to announce that we recognize the threat, we recognize urgency, and Craig, could you please come up? We knew we had an ambitious goal to try to meet people where they are, roll up our sleeves, get our hands dirty, try to improve the resilience of a handful of hospital communities, innovate narrowly, scale broadly. And we asked who's willing, if we have this engine of innovation, who's willing to put some gas in the tank? So, Craig.
My deal is that I think the entire country is under threat, kind of like in World War II. And like in World War II, we need to mobilize everyone in the country who can play a role. This is playing out in a bunch of ways. One of them is this Take 9 effort, where we're trying to recommend specific tools where everyone can play some small part in protecting their homes, their businesses, and maybe they can nudge the people who are running their infrastructure. My deal too is then to fund the people getting everyone together to protect our infrastructure, particularly water and power, and that includes the Undisruptible 27 effort. So my deal is to help out where I can, to use the resources I acquired when I started something called Craigslist 30 years ago. And now my challenge is to get out of the way and to know when to stop talking.
Thank you. So not only did Craig fund the initial pilot, where we're trying to see, is there any there? Can we identify and buy down risk? Do we have a theory of change? But now that we have proven so, in addition to the original $700,000 he gave for the pilot, I'm very excited to spring forward from here. And we'll talk more about the plan in the track 2 later today. But he has generously committed $3.2 million across the next 2 years to make sure that you can all help your communities. I love my gubbies. I love my innovators. There are things the public sector can't do, but the private sector won't do. And for those things that fall through the cracks, it falls to you. And I'm honored to work with you. I'm honored to partner with Bryson. We have a really packed agenda. We hope you have a really hard time picking talks. I'm going to stop talking and end this little welcome. Thank you.
Enjoy the conference.